Hello everyone, myself Rutvi Pal and welcome back to my channel. I am a student of Department of English, Maharaja Krishna Kumar Siji Bhavnagar University. As we all know, 5th September is celebrated across India as the Teachers' Day, as an occasion to honor and appreciate our beloved teachers. In our department, we celebrated Teachers' Day virtually every year with great enthusiasm. As a part of this celebration, we prepare one video on topics of our choice. Along with the video, we also create a Google Form quiz and a short TED lesson. Once you watch the lesson and complete the quiz, you will automatically receive an e-certificate in your mail. And I will put a link of Google Form quiz and TED lesson in description. So kindly fill out this form and view the lesson in TED. So without any delay, let's begin with my topic. And my presentation topic is the Sabavant the Serpent myth, performance, and the female agency in Girish Karnad Nagmandala. To understand Nagmandala, we must first understand its architect Girish Karnad, and uh, here this is a basic table of content which topic I am going to discuss, and here is the basic information about Girish Karnad. I am not going through the slide. I will tell orally about him. He is a Kosokal figure in Indian drama, a playwright who famously means the rich veins of ancient myth, legend, and folk tales. But he does not do this to simply retell them. He used them as a lens to critique contemporary social issue. His 1990 play Nagmandal, or we can say a play with a cobra, it's a perfect example. It it's a braid together two Kannada folk tales he heard from the scholar A.K. Ramanujan. My central argument today is this: Karnad used the familiar structure of myth and oral performance not to celebrate tradition but to subvert it. He strategically dismantled this from forms from within to expose the brutal injustice of patriarchy and crucially to architect a space of female agency and transformation. As the scholars Soparnaro argue, Conner used the myth to, and I quote, disrupt, dismantle, and erase bias, difference, and hierarchical polarities, giving voice to many silence, micro narratives of suffering and exclusion. This is the core of his feminist project. Moving further, the architecture of the patriarchy, confinement, and the male gaze. Now let's meet our protagonist Rani. Her name means queen, but her life in is one of the prisoner. She is the emblem of who what scholar Bismanu Charan Mehto calls the second sex in patriarchal society. Her world is defined by confinement. After marrying Aparna, her husband, who name literally mean any man. She is literally located inside the house, and she is isolated. Okay, we can say a case birds with no social interactions. While Aparna himself galivants of to his concubine, means a brothel lady, and completely ignoring Rani's emotional and physical and sexual need. These This control extended to the social level. This patriarchal gaze is represented by the village elders, and their scrutiny falls exclusively on Rani's body and chastity. As Janardhan's Roy's research highlighted, Aparna's open infidelity is ignored, while Rani's pregnancy immediately become a public scandal. And this is the architecture of patriarchy. It's a confined, isolated, and police woman while granting men impunity. And moving further, feminist subversions through the mythopoeia myth making. So how does Karnad fight back. She takes very myth that have upheld this patriarchy for centuries, and brutality turns them inside to out. This is the mythopia, myth making for the feminist ends. Looks at two examples. First, the chastity test in the epic Ramayana. Sita undergoes a final order to prove her purity to her husband Ram. It's a test that reframe male authority. In Nagmandala, Rani is also subjected to an order, but it's a snake order. However, her success does not refine patriarchal control. Instead, it's inward int. The cobra itself protect her. While in Ramayana, Ram doesn't support it to Sita, and she is the declared a goddess. As Dr. Itika Dagger note, this moment exposed the double stance of patriarchal morality. The tools of oppression because becomes her tool of liberation. And the second one is about the Ahalya myth in the Ramayana. Ahalya is seduced by the god Indra in disguise and is cursed in curse for her transaction. Similarly, Rani is tricked by the Nag in disguise, but Karnad subvert this. Instead of being cursed, Rani's encounter is what lead to her awakening, her confidence and her motherhood. The serpent, a complex symbol of both danger and divinity, becomes the unlikely instrument of her empowerment. Next, agency, performance, and the subaltern voice. This awakening is a journey of finding a voice. Rani begins the play as a silent, submissive girl, but she ends in the definitely declaring to her husbands, "I am not a parrot." Her moment of greatest agency is a public performance. The snake ordeal is a theoretical stage. And by holding the cobra and speaking her truth, a truth that belies the patriarchal code, she performs an act of power that forced society to recognize her. This connection to the play in ingenious structure. The main story is told by the frame narrative or talking frame, gossiping learners light of different households. Scholar Sopana Royce remind us that Kannada show this as a representing the oral female tradition of storytelling, a parallel system of communication among the women, often in kitchens and sharing their own understanding of reality. The entire play is thus an act of emphasizing a subaltern a voice that patriarchy has tied to silence and tied to silence. And the body is a site of patriarchal concentrations. Ultimately, this battle is fought on the terrain of Rani's own body. Initially, her body is a site to be controlled, confined, ignored, and then publicly interrogated. But through her relationship with the Nag, a relation facilitated by the another woman, and Kurudwa and her magical roots, Rani reclaim her body. She overcomes fragility, discovered sexual pleasure and affection, and most importantly, achieving uh, motherhood and in stunning irony, her pregnant body, the very evidence that the patriarchy used to accuse her, become the source of her unsensible power. It is her motherhood that finally forced the society to grant her respect and authority. She reclaims the narrative written on her own flesh. The theoretical frameworks are global dialogues. Karnad's genius is that his play enters into a dialogue with the global theoretical framework. We can read Rani's journey through Simon's de Beauvoir's concept of the second sex. She is the questions others defined entirely by her relationship to the male Aparna and her arc in about overcoming these imposed identity. This play critique of the patriarchal structures of the family aligns with Firestone's argument in the decline of the sex. And formally, the use of the flames and the self-aware storytelling create what German playwright Berold Brecht called the alienation effect is prevention us from the getting lost in the fantasy and instead force us the audience to think critically about the social issue being presented. Empowerment or ambiguous comparison bring us to the our crucial concluding question: is this ending a clear empowerment or it is an ambiguous compromise? There is the triumphant reading. Rani ends as the head of the household, revered as a goddess. Aparna submit to her will. She has achieved respect, authority, and motherhood, everything she lacked. But this is also an ambiguous reading. Her empowerment is still tied to her role as a mother. Within within the patriarchal structures, has the system truly been overturned, or she has been granted a more powerful role within it? The death of the nap, the figure who represented true affection and the passion, suggests a bittersweet victory as Janardhan Roy deserve. She ending accept the need to give women space, but it cannot fully dispel the suppressed desire for greater love and fulfillment. Towards the ending, in conclusion, Girish Khanna's Nag Mandala is far more than a fact tale. It is a sophisticated, powerful work of a feminist subversion. It masterfully used the very tools of tradition, myth, folklore, and rituals to critique and dismantle the patriarchal value those tools often uphold. Through the Rani's journey, Kannad charts a provocation path from silent subjugation to vocal agency, using the frame body as the ultimate site of resistance and transformation. The play does not offer us a simply happy ending, but leave us within a complex, challenging, and ultimately resolutionary vision what empowerment can look like. Forcing us to question and the very foundation of social power and gender roles. Here we are concluding our session, and thank you so much for being till the end. In the description I'm adding a link of my Google Forms and TED lesson, so kindly request to fill up this form, and thank you so much for being with me.